Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of Cookiecast. Today is another sit-down with Paul Williams. So, as you can imagine, it's the usual stuff from me and Paul. Pretty sure there'll probably be some wrestling in there. It's a decent length, this one, but it's just the one part today. So, I will listen to this one, see what you think. This is another sit-down with Paul Williams. Podcast time, let's do this. Boom, got the old catchphrase in there straight off the bat, as I like to do. It's totally a thing now. Totally going to get t-shirts made. I was talking to Donna about it last night.
T-shirts!
T-shirt time. Paul Williams, podcast regular.
Good evening, Andrew.
Are you well?
Am I well? Unfortunately, well, as you might be able to hear from my more so nasalness than usual.
More nasal than nasal.
I've been got by the hay fever, I think.
I was going to open this one with good evening, and tonight you will be listening to two men suffering with the hay fever. Because I think I might be being attacked with it, although just before I pressed record, my chest was feeling a little...
Swell? A little swell from the old gym?
Oh no, definitely not. No, more like I imagine I'm going to spend the next few days while I'm not at work unwell. So that'll be nice.
Oh, you've got the 4-day weekend, you son of a bitch.
Yeah.
Excellent.
I've got 4 days off. Anyway,
so you're back until like Wednesday, Thursday or something, eh?
Yeah, something like that.
You fucking slag.
Hey, bathrooms to do and stuff. So, I had Donna on last night, and I was talking to her about the fact that her podcast is it's quite highly rated in the podcast world. She's
well played, Donna.
Her and James Keep are up there in the ratings, closely followed by one Paul Williams. I think that is just because of the volume.
It's alright though, because obviously...
Quantity.
Only because people, obviously, this is not a video podcast. I've just spent the last 2 minutes saluting the millions of fans that are around the world. So, big thumbs up.
It might seem like a strange question, especially now, rather than asking it further down the line, but I'm sort of now starting to ask people what it feels like, because something I said to Don last night was, you were there on Tuesday when I practically ran round the pub showing anybody who would listen that I had a notification on my phone to tell me that the new episode of Cookiecast was available to download from iTunes, because that will probably never stop being old.
Well, you say that, but it'll get to a stage like 2 years down the line, we're like, oh my god, it's on again. I'm just have to turn these push notifications off. I
don't know, because... It's an achievement. Well, no matter which way you slice it.
Do you reckon...
It's an achievement. It's committed to history. Donna said something last night, and I was like, you've done it now because you've literally committed that to history.
Well, that's it. Obviously, I don't really know the intricate details of Apple Podcasts or any other way. That's a good point, actually. I've never had to do it. How do Android users get this?
Don't know. Somebody asked me that question. They're like, how do Android go about it? And I was like, is there an Android podcast app? And I looked on their store with them, and there was something that had the same symbol
as the Apple podcast.
As the Apple one. And I went, is it that? And nobody was
really podcasting sure. Is an Apple-based thing, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean...
Obviously, got the iPod.
Apple sort of embraced it quite early on.
Because I was going to say, the first one I ever remember listening to was Ricky Gervais, and I don't know if he was like the pilot guy.
Do you know something? He has been. Other people have listed him as the reason they got into podcasting because he'd done it. I'm almost sure. I'm gonna say Kevin Smith might have said that Ricky Gervais was the one that he heard.
Quite possibly. I know you're not a huge fan.
Up and down.
But the early stuff he did with Carl Pilkington and Steve Merchant is some of the funniest stuff I've ever listened to. It is absolutely hilarious.
I'm going to ask a redundant question at this point in time, but I don't suppose you've seen Logan.
Logan?
Yeah, the Wolverine film, Logan.
Is Stephen Merchant in it?
He is.
Of course he is. He's everywhere now.
Yeah, he is.
He's so The Rock has done a
Dwayne the Rock Johnson.
Rock the Dwayne Johnson.
Rock the Dwayne Johnson.
I think he's like either the executive producer or he's the guy who basically sort of put the idea to somebody to do a biopic. Well, I say a biopic. It was like more like I suppose it is a biopic if it's a film, isn't it? A story of someone's life. Is that a class as a biopic? I don't know. But he's done it about Paige, the British wrestler who we discussed on the WrestleMania pod. About the fact that she started wrestling when she was like 13 or something.
Because she comes from a family of wrestlers.
So her family are
all wrestlers.
And they've booked and promoted wrestling in I think it's in Norwich or Great Yarmouth.
Okay.
In that sort of East Anglia area since she was a kid. And apparently, as legend goes, her mum was already a couple of months pregnant with her and she was still wrestling.
Wow.
So apparently she took her first bump, wrestling lingo, when she was...
As a bump?
Yeah.
Because that's
an embryo, or if you want to look at that way. I'm really sorry. My nose is all over the place. This is not even funny. I can barely hear myself over the fact that I can just hear a singer.
As you said earlier, I think the many podcast listeners that we have, all 4 of them, are probably used to the. If we've never mentioned it, Paul is allergic to cats. So he loves coming to my house and playing with both of the kittens, and then not being able to, breathe and speak and things like that.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
He loves it.
I feel that sounds so much better.
He loves it.
But it's alright, because in about 5 minutes I'll be bumped back up again. I even took a decongestant tablet.
Good lad.
At work this morning, because I was like, I feel a little bit,
yeah.
Should probably do something about that. And then took my antihistamine, as always, when I'm coming here.
Well,
because, I like to breathe. So
that's one of my new phrases.
I must admit, I enjoyed listening to the James Keep podcast when you said, yeah, someone's pointed out that I say so quite a lot in the podcast, so I'm trying not to do it anymore. Yeah. And then you was like,
so.
Anyway.
I've replaced so with
Oh, that was it, sorry. Not anyway.
Yeah.
You could replace it with anyway.
I could do, actually. That's quite good. Yeah, it's not a big thing at the moment, but what does it feel like at this point in time, knowing that you have I can't even think of the word.
I know what you're trying to say. You're trying to say something that's in theory could be in the records for.
Yeah, you have contributed to something that will, in some weird way, live on forever. Because it's on YouTube, it's on iTunes, it's on SoundCloud.
It's an interesting one. It is strange to think that long after I'm dead, in theory, somebody could find, listen to, and dare I say, enjoy this recording.
Once again, I have failed to get the name of the person who's commented on has been the first comment on the podcast on YouTube. I've failed to get their name. Once again, second time round, I'm giving you a shout out. I will get your name for the next time. But yeah, we've had our first comment, and it was positive, and it was like, and then I went to James and was like, "Do you know this person?" He was like, "Yeah, he's a mate of mine." I was like, there we go.
Was it on his podcast? By the
it was, yes. But it was a positive. It was a positive comment.
That's the good thing about it, though. So obviously, because neither of us are famous, I mean that in its own right is absolutely appalling. But because neither of us are famous,
I'm famous. Infamous.
That's the one. The likelihood of people listening to this outside of our friendship group is small.
True.
So we're going off word of mouth, I suppose, would be the easiest way to describe it, or friends of friends.
Yeah. So the conversation I've had with a couple of people recently is that I'm now trying to venture outside our circle.
Right, what with getting people on to do it.
So, firstly, I'm going to try and get people outside of this. I spoke to a mate of mine today who, at this point in time, will remain nameless, but he's a mini celebrity.
Ooh, interesting.
He's a York celebrity, so that's that. I've spoken to a couple of people who I think could be really interesting people to have on. I think that their jobs and their lives are quite interesting, so that should be quite good. And hopefully, each of these people that we start to bring in to do individual or multiple podcasts should push it that little bit further. We can promote them, they can promote us. And there is... I don't want to say too much because it'll be really embarrassing if I further down the line don't manage to pull it off. But I am trying to push things a little bit further. And I've said to a couple of people that I didn't bother with any form of promotion. You know, not that I believe that if I promoted it, it'd be out there and everybody would be listening to it. I mean, I haven't done anything, but I do think that at some point it is something that will need to be addressed. So, you know.
So you mean as in like...
We need to get the word out.
So the best ones are always like when Jericho does his podcast. So he'll be talking to someone and then he'll just sort of like, you'll notice that the sound of the recording changes, but he's still sort of like, so it'll be like me and you talking now, and then all of a sudden it just sort of like something would click, not like a massive sort of noticeable something like that, but then it should be like me going, yeah, so Andy, I've noticed that we've always talked about this and stuff like that, and I want to get your thoughts on that a little bit later in the podcast. But now I need to tell you about Geico.
Is it not Squarespace?
No, it's always Geico.
MeUndies?
No, he's moved off MeUndies now.
Sherry's Berries.
He did do Sherry's Berries for a while, but he's moved off that as well.
The Dave's
True Flowers to is it Pro Flowers?
Pro Flowers.
So one of them is really popular at the moment because I think it's Mother's Day coming up in the States.
Yeah.
Quite soon or something like that.
Yeah, that's a weird one.
So Pro Flowers is big.
Onnit.com?
Onnit. No, he doesn't do Onnit. Sure. But again, he's moved Podcast Network now, so...
so the advertising will move.
So the advertising will change. But True Car... I've forgotten about True Car.
They'll find you a car.
Did you know, Andrew, that apparently True Car not only can do you a new car, but they can also sell you a used car.
They can.
So, yeah. So basically, that's it. It's what you're saying is we're going to start doing adverts on.
I mean, obviously we've done our fake advert so far, and that phone never rang.
I mean, it's unbelievable when you consider it. I mean, that is a travesty.
Yeah. The amount of money I spend in Asda. A couple of free bottles of water. That's all I was asking.
That's all they need to do. And
I would happily promote them every day of the week.
But what you're saying is now, balls to you, Asda. I'm going to go to Sainsbury's and get my water. All my water's coming from Sainos.
I don't know. Sainos Tesco's?
Sainos Asda. Oh, you're not talking about the merger?
Yeah.
Sainos Asda.
I thought you were Sainos Tesco's.
No, Tesco's. So Tesco's out on its own as number one.
But
Sainsbury's and Asda are number 2 and 3.
Asda's Walmart.
Yeah, but I think I don't think it's on there.
Although to be fair, Sainsbury's are taking over everything at the moment. They've bought Habitat and Argos.
Well, they've just incorporated them into the store in York. I don't know if that's like, I was going to say worldwide.
No, I think it's a thing. I think they've taken over Argos.
Fair enough.
But we are getting off track.
Yeah, but that's always the best type. It's like when you go. Wait, I would equate this to should we go for a beer after work? Yeah, I'm free. Should we go for a beer? 2 a.m, you're still out and you're like, what the hell just happened here? we appear to have gone off the rails somewhere. Why are we in Amsterdam? At no point did that ever happen to me. I am in no way cool enough or interested enough to ever say that I ended up in Amsterdam on my own.
Oh shit. See, now I'm just super aware of it.
Yeah, but it's basically just your
it's my second catchphrase. Have you, other than York's #1 rated top podcast, have you been listening to much in the way of podcasts in the last couple of weeks?
I have. All the usuals. It's dawned on me that I don't know if I mentioned this after the first one, but I majorly did someone a disservice when I was talking about my favourite podcasts. I might have covered it, but if I hadn't, I'm going to cover it now.
Here we go.
So I think I said Chris Jericho was my third, and then it was, was it? Or did I say Taz? Then
Taz was
Chris
on
Jericho,
there.
and then something to wrestle. I'm going to take Taz out now because he's gone to doing the American sports show like 5 days a week. So he only does the occasional podcasts, and they are still good, but they're not what he used to do. So it's not as in depth or something like that.
Okay.
So I'm taking Taz off, and in the third slot. No, do you know what? I'm pushing Jericho down to number 3.
Whoa.
And I'm even tempted to go joint first place here.
Jeebus.
So you've got something to wrestle. Excellent. So good that it's now been given its own show on the WWE network.
Nice.
So you can watch it on the network and get all the video and stuff like that. And then obviously on Fridays it gets released as a podcast. But yeah, sharing the limelight with that is a gentleman by the name of Jim Cornette. So Jim Cornette, back in the day, you might know that name because he was in the wrestling for quite a long time.
Yeah, it's a name that rings a bell.
In 1993, he turned up as Yokozuna's American spokesperson.
Yeah.
He always used to carry around a tennis racket.
I remember.
So he does the Jim Cornette Experience on a Thursday.
Okay.
Excellent. They just normally have a guest on and they just discuss old wrestling and stuff like that.
Okay.
Very interesting. He swears a hell of a lot.
Good luck.
So if I'm ever listening to it and my dad sort of walks through or something or hears it, he's like, "Oh, there's no need. Oh, terrible." Rah, rah. So,
John Williams, legend in his own.
oh my God, does that mean that there's 3 of the Williams clan have now been mentioned on the podcast?
And only one has been on. I think
Only one has been on.
Oh my God, we could do a Williams trifecta.
That is never going to happen.
It should.
It's never going to happen, and I don't think anyone wants that. I'll tell you what, I'll send you James and John, and they can do a duo. That's what people want. That's what people came to see. The best 2 Williams. Oh, that's harsh, because that's leaving my mum out, and she's lovely. So, but yeah, I'm totally.
So this
I've gone off. I've gone off on a tangent now. I have no idea what I've said.
So this is your new
it's
joint one.
So he does the experience on a Thursday, which is just like them talking to a guest or whatever. Mm-hmm. And on Mondays, look, I can't even say that. Monday. I'll just release the valve. This must sound excellent, by the way. On Mondays they do the drive-through, which is just like a question and answer session. So you submit your questions either through email, Facebook, Twitter, things like that. And they read them out on the show, and then Jim answers the questions about that.
One of my favourite things about Hollywood Babylon is that their email address is an AOL email address, and they get so much shit, and they're just like, yeah, we know, and we don't care.
Do they send people to get to the website link by sending them through Lycos or Ask Jeeves? Or
I don't think so.
I can't even think what the other one was that wasn't Google.
Yeah, those were the days. I'm sure there's probably a MySpace link on there or something. Who knows?
Bebo. You've linked your Bebo account to that.
Jeez. Okay, so new podcast lineup.
So ridiculous.
New podcast.
This has had absolutely no rhyme, reason, or structure to it. It's brilliant.
It's amazing. This is what I wanted. I was saying to Don last night, I was like, it's unfair because I keep commenting on a podcast that I haven't released, and people will be like, I haven't heard that one, but hopefully they will have done by the time they hear this one. So
not me, obviously, because
I was saying to Donna that I wanted to move away from the question and answer format that I'd originally started and move more into the conversation format. Show notes should be pointers, not a list of questions.
Bullet
sort
points,
of thing.
yeah.
So that's what I'm trying, and this is it's a conversation between 2 people. But yeah, I've had some new ideas for some new things. Podcast team up, podcast crossover. So podcast team up is you put two well-known podcast names in the same room, and they can just talk about it, and I'll sort of facilitate. So
Brilliant.
You, Thomas Quinn,
Ho ho ho.
you, James Key.
That's a bit of a pattern here.
So that's one of the ideas about podcast versus. So you put one podcast person in whose specialist subject is one thing, and then you find somebody who has the exact opposite. This is something that Ed had come up with originally. Is like, we should get Paul to do a podcast against me. That was Ed.
Right.
Where he talks about sports and I tell him why he's wrong. And I was like, yep, totally.
Yeah, but that's all well and good because he hates sport. Although, as we discovered the other week, he played basketball with us.
Think it's ruse.
And he was excellent.
Yeah.
And he was playing technically bare feet.
Yeah, I think it's all
and
ruse.
On a playground where there was almost definitely hypodermic needles.
And broken glass. Yeah, I think he's trying to fleece us for money at some point in the process.
Oh my god! Can you imagine if he's an absolute shark?
Yeah, sharking it.
Little bastard.
And the other one, which is actually the last thing on my list of notes, is the podcast game show.
I love the sound of this. I think it sounds excellent.
You are not the only person. For a group of people who have been hitting the quiz scene recently, I was like, we should do like a head-to-head kind of podcast game.
Yep.
One person versus the other.
Absolutely.
Specialist subjects. Or you could flip people's specialist subjects on them. So you could go up against somebody where your specialist subject being football knowledge from the beginning of time till today, but you could ask them the football question.
Oh my god!
And then you could be asked,
right? Like I'm gonna
game?
I'm gonna put it out there.
This character.
Yeah, I'm gonna put it out there. If you do that and it ends up being me versus Ed, and I have to answer questions on tech. And he has to answer questions on football. We are both screwed.
The points as it stand after 3 hours are 0-0.
The thing is though,
it's a tiebreaker, gents.
The thing is though, I would fluke one by just saying Android,
YouTube,
Android,
Ericsson,
Firefox,
Android,
and
Ericsson,
correct, and then he'll fluke on by just saying Man United.
Yeah, Man United. Manchester Central.
Oh, Ed.
Such a character. Can you give me a quick rundown of what's happening in the wrestling world post WrestleMania?
Yeah, so
anything big?
Well, it's given the time we're recording. Now, I always wonder with this. Should we be dating these, or is it a case of, unless there's specific things we talk about, it's just a case of we could have recorded this anytime we want.
So that is one of the things. So one of the things that we've been talking about recently is how soon something should be released. So there's podcasts that have massively jumped their order because of their relevance.
Yeah.
So James Keep's last one jumped massively in front of a load of others because he was... Well, we were doing a review of something that had just come out and we needed to get it out. To be fair, Donna's should be released like now, really, because we talk about something that's happening next week.
Right, okay.
So that's another one that should really be released.
Right, that makes sense.
Over the weekend sort of thing. So depending on the relevance of the subjects we're talking about, depends on how soon it should be released.
Well, I can talk about what's happened... And I'll just say in the last sort of like week or so, couple of weeks.
Okay.
So in the last couple of weeks, I think I might have mentioned this to you at work, or I definitely mentioned it to somebody, and we were discussing why they've gone. So basically, they went over to Saudi Arabia recently.
They being the company.
They being WWE.
Okay.
So the whole company. Well, we'll get back to that in a minute because it wasn't the whole company. There's a reason. So they went to Saudi Arabia to do a one-night event called the Greatest Royal Rumble. Mm-hmm. So, for starters, everyone's probably confused. There's me, assuming that everyone cares. Everyone being, any wrestling fan would probably be confused. It's like, hang on a second, you're doing the Royal Rumble now, but it's not January. Mm-hmm. So why are you doing a Royal Rumble? And it was a case of it's not the Royal Rumble.
It's not the Royal Rumble.
It's they're just using the Royal Rumble format to do a. I keep calling it a pay-per-view, and they need to get a new word because now they've launched the network.
Mm-hmm.
the monthly specials that they put on are technically called pay-per-views because that's what they used to be back in the day. It was a case of to view it, you had to pay for it. Mm-hmm. But now, because you pay your monthly subscription, I suppose technically you are still paying to view it because you're still paying for your monthly subscription.
Yeah,
but you don't. But you don't as well. You don't have to pay for it like up. Well, you don't. You still do have to pay for it. I can't really think of how to word it, but they kind of need to call it something different to pay-per-views.
Yeah, like event or special.
Like the streaming special or something like that. So they went to Saudi Arabia to do this greatest Royal Rumble, and the idea was that they had several title matches, as you would normally, and then at the end of the night they had a 50-man Royal Rumble match. So that's nearly double the size of a regular match, because normally the Royal Rumble is only 30 men or 30 women, as they've started doing a women's Rumble this year. Sorry, I've just got to let my nose out again. This sounds excellent, by the way. So they did the 50-man Royal Rumble right at the end. And it was just... It was basically like people were calling it a glorified house show. So those are the live events that they do. So basically, anything that's not on a Monday for Raw...
Yeah.
Or a Tuesday for SmackDown, or on a Sunday as a pay-per-view, whatever you want to call it now, it's always classed as a live event. Okay. But back in the day, it used to be called house shows, because it's not televised, it's only for the house.
The audience.
So, this was classed as like a glorified live event, because it was mainly just for the people in Saudi Arabia, but then they decided to put it on the network.
Okay.
So, it was... I think 5 hours in total from start to finish.
Fair old length.
So a decent whack of time. They had 7 championship matches, I think.
Wow.
So they had the Universal Championship, the WWE Championship. That's the 2 main titles on each show. You had either side's tag team titles. Mm-hmm. Then you had the United States Championship and the Intercontinental Championship, which are like the secondary titles on each show. Yep. And then you had the Cruiserweight Championship. Okay. So that's 7 title matches in total. Did they have like another match that was... Oh yeah, they did. They had John Cena versus Triple H as like a special attraction match.
Alright.
And then they also had The Undertaker versus a guy called Rusev in a casket match. And that was the first casket match they had for like 5 years or something ridiculous like that.
I saw a video on the Facebook the other day of a guy coming into his wedding as the Undertaker.
Absolutely excellent.
And it was really well done. They like brought the lights down, they had the music, they had like dry ice blowing into like the aisle and him walking in, holding the belt.
Of course he did.
Dressed as the Undertaker, walking in to his wedding.
The thing there is, he has married a very patient and understanding woman.
I work on the principle that she has to be a fan and would appreciate
You'd imagine
that.
so. Otherwise,
they're not going to be off to a great start in that marriage. You did what?
I was going to say, she'd have to know about it, otherwise she is going to be fuming. But yeah, I imagine that one of my friends got married a couple of years ago, and he is basically like my big wrestling mate. He's the guy that I went to New Orleans with.
Is it Stu?
It's Stu. Whole Stu. So he always... Oh, there you go. Shout out. Stuart Woodmansey, that's his name. He might listen to the podcast at some point in the future.
Yeah. But remember the Candyman principle.
I have no idea what that means.
If you say his name 3 times, he has to be on the podcast.
Well, at this point, I've not mentioned him by his full name, but I'm pretty sure we covered Stu in one of the earlier podcasts.
Yeah.
So that'll be 2.
That's what I mean. If it gets another mention.
Well, it's also when we got onto one of your other topics later on in the conversation. Mm-hmm. That's when I'll bring up the guy who lives in Spain.
And I'm pretty sure
And I'm pretty sure that'll be his 3rd mention.
Oh.
Which means that he has to be Skyped in for the next
So we're getting on a plane and going to Spain?
I'm game, if you are. But anyway, going back to Stu. So, he got married a couple of years ago. And I'm pretty sure, had he had the chance, he would have done something like that for his wedding. He didn't. But as they were leaving the church, he did have the Emperor's March playing.
Really?
Yeah. Just to clarify, is it the Emperor's March? I'm saying it now because I don't do Star Wars.
So, I was gonna tell you a story, and then I was gonna interrupt you at one point, saying about like people and weddings and stuff. My sister hates Star Wars.
Right.
So.
This ain't going to end well, is it?
It's not. So I gave my sister away at a wedding. We walked down the aisle. Now I knew what was coming.
Oh no!
Because, I'd done the music for the wedding.
All right, okay.
So I'd like arranged various bits of music and this, that, and the other. And my sister walked down the aisle at a very fast speed. I'm like trying to drag her back, and she's just charging down the aisle, which was entertaining. However, she did walk back up the aisle to the Star Wars theme tune, which my mother was just wetting herself, and my sister was like, really?
So the song to send them off into wedded bliss was the opening theme to Star Wars.
Yeah.
I don't know, is that better than the Emperor's March? I have no idea. Like, because surely the Emperor's March, is that not a bit sort of
Them's
risque?
The bad guys. Them's the bad guys.
Was it not sort of a bit risque to say against the wife? Is it almost saying like she's like the baddie or something like that? Or is it saying that he's the baddie? I have no idea.
Yeah.
So this is again. I don't do Star Wars, so.
With your newfound love for all things movie based, maybe it's time.
It's not really all things movie based, is
maybe
it?
it's time to saddle up.
It's not going to happen.
Saddle
You
up
can
the
say
movie
you can say all you want, and if I was going to do it, I'd annoy you all by watching it in order. And I mean one through as God intended them to be watched.
God did not intend them to be watched in that order at all.
See, this is the thing. I don't do Star Wars, but I know enough to what to say to piss people off about it. Like, obviously, the best character in it.
Don't you fucking dare! I will slap the Skywalker.
Is he in the second one?
No, they learned from that.
Was he not in the second one specifically because in the first one people?
Oh, actually, no. I think he is. I think he is.
Dear.
Very briefly.
Oh dear.
In the second one, I think he like walks past or something.
I tell you something.
I know, it was
I'm going to put it out. I'm going to put it on. I'm going to put it out there. I bet that is an impression that Dench has got in the locker.
Jar Jar Binks.
Big time. Because it sounds awfully similar to his Gollum. In theory.
Oh, well, closer to his Stitch, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just make it a bit more squeaky, I suppose.
Yeah. I'll ask him when I get him next time. He does love a good impression, that kid.
So yeah, so Saudi Arabia was the rest of it.
So Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
That a thing then? Gonna be a thing?
Well, this is
like the NFL in the UK.
Apparently they're going back in either November or December.
It's got to be for the money.
Oh my god, it's not even funny.
It's got to be for
the
money.
So they must be reporting their half-yearly figures at some point in the next couple of weeks, couple of months tops. It is going to be insane when you see their balance sheet jump from whatever it is by the $200 million or something they were paid to go over there.
Saudi Arabia money's,
absolutely insane. So normally what you'd see in the ringside area, they'd normally put in the chairs right up to the barrier and so that to get as many people in as possible.
Yeah.
And then obviously the floor seats are normally your most expensive packages.
Yeah.
So to put it in perspective, Stu doesn't count as a third mention because it's in one podcast, so it still counts as two. Was talking me through because they come over here twice a year. They come in, I think this month. This month being May. So they're coming in May, and then they come again in November.
Yep.
They'll do a Raw taping and a SmackDown taping, and then they'll also do what we discussed earlier, these live events, these house shows.
Yeah. Across
the country. They go up to Scotland. They go down as far as Minehead, which I think's in Cornwall. I've no idea.
Just as an aside, if they did in fact go to Scotland, what might that sound like?
I can't do it with a nose. It'll just sound weird.
I didn't know if you would know.
Oh, you know me songs, yeah. Come on, John. I ain't seen that. Very, very nasal.
So they come over here twice a year.
Yeah, they come over here twice a year.
Wreck the joint.
Tear it up. Or maybe not tear it, lightly fold it.
Lightly ruffle it.
By all accounts, I think they quite enjoy it because it's like, they get a chance to see more stuff and stuff.
I think the thing about like all the American stuff starting to filter over here a bit more is that they generally have a pretty good time when they come over. I know there was that whole thing about, was it last year or the year before when the NFL came over, that one of the teams got into a massive amount of trouble because they were just out drinking all night the night before the game.
Doesn't surprise me. But you'd imagine that with the wrestlers, because like, back in the day, that used to be all they do. Like, if you ever listen to Stone Cold on his podcast...
Pain pills and alcohol.
Basically.
They were all...
It was a case of like, so,
alcoholics.
Ric Flair, I'll tell you something, if you get a chance to watch it, try and find the Ric Flair documentary.
Everybody's raving about that.
It's excellent. It's really
like
good.
I said to you before, you should start listening to the Bill Burr podcast because he's massively into all the stuff you love. And one of those things is he's a huge Ric Flair fan.
Yeah.
Loves the guy. I think I'd seen a picture recently of him with Ric Flair. That was something. Is Ric Flair connected to this street brawling thing or something?
Street brawling?
Yeah, there's this new thing in America that I know that Bill Burr's going to commentate for it, that it's like bare knuckle fighting, just guys off the street.
Jesus.
But it's a little bit UFC, a little bit like that sort of stuff that they're making an event out of it.
So it's supposed to be like UFC but with a bit more sort of structure to it and stuff like that?
No, I think it's the other way around. I think it's like this guy off the street wants to fight this guy off the street. They'll stick him somewhere and they just knock 7 bells out of each other. It's
bum fights?
Basically.
What's that from?
It's one step up from bum fight.
What is that from?
They did a bum fight thing in the league.
Is it that?
Yeah,
I'm sure I'm thinking of the Arrested Development thing when they're talking. Is it like Brothers? Oh God, what the hell is it called?
Oh, the videos that they released that George Senior was releasing.
Yeah. Oh God, what's it called?
Brother Fights or something.
It's something like that, but it's not. And then they release like a side one that was like Baby Buster's first sort of.
Arrested Development.
What?
It's back in people's minds.
Oh, I thought you were saying that as in they're doing another new
Jesus,
series.
God no.
I might give it one more chance.
No, I watched that whole 4th series. You should be ashamed, Arrested Development.
Well, you picked up on it the other day, didn't you? It was at the end of... In the credits... This isn't even a spoiler, is it? Because it's the credits. So you can't get anything from the credits. I don't think, anyway.
Okay. I know what you're going to say.
Did it give anything away?
So, in the credits of Avengers Infinity War, and this is not a spoiler, as we've just pointed out, there is a mention. We were sat in the cinema. It's 3 o'clock in the morning. The credits are rolling, and right.
I've already had 2 sleeps at this point, so
I'm fresh as a daisy.
I am fresh as a daisy.
But right at the back end of the credits, it said there was like a special thanks thing for Arrested Development. And
so we were both like, eh?
Both was like Arrested Development, but I seem to vaguely remember something and went away with that sort of memory. And then my mate Luke sent me what it was. So
I'm pretty sure it was Boy Fights.
Boy Fights. So Luke sent that there's an Easter egg, an Arrested Development Easter egg in Avengers Infinity War. And then that got onto the conversation about the fact that there is also Arrested Development Easter egg in Civil War. Now, by this point, there's probably not going to be a spoiler to say that the fight at the airport has the Arrested Development stair car in the background, which is brilliant. But the short version is that the directors of these movies, Avengers and things like that, the Russo brothers, were the guys that directed most of the Arrested Development episodes. That was the connection.
See, I always got confused with that because I always thought it was a guy called Mitchell Hurwitz who did that. Arrested Development, but I may be wrong. I'm sure I'd recognise that name from somewhere, but yeah. I'm just trying to think how we got onto that, but it was because we mentioned the bum fight thing, this street fighting so-and-so that Bill Burr's apparently going to be doing or something like that. But yeah, as far as I'm aware, Ric Flair is not connected with it. But the point I was going to make was that if you do get a chance to watch that Ric Flair documentary,
yeah, like I say, everybody
there's a bit where Jim Ross is talking about like a night that they were just out, and apparently he was just walking through the hotel lobby to go to like his car or his room or something like that, and Flair saw him and was like, "Get here." So Jim's like, "Oh no, I'm just going to go to bed." He was like, "No, you're not." I was like, "No, I really want to go to bed. I want to go to sleep." "No, not happening." So he basically got him in the bar, and apparently, I think he said it's something like he ordered 50 kamikazes. Now I have no idea what's in a kamikaze. But I'm going to assume not good.
Everything.
I'm assuming it's basically a Long Island iced tea without any coke.
Yeah.
So apparently he ordered 50 kamikazes, and obviously in America, I don't know if you noticed this when you went to America. Well, it might just be everywhere that's not the UK. Shots
are bigger.
Massive.
Yeah. Massive shots.
And apparently he just buy. So back in the day, he would just basically go absolutely off on one.
Yeah.
So as soon as the matches were over, you'd go get showered, get changed, and then you just basically go to the bar.
Yeah.
And I think he ordered these 50 kamikazes, then he drank like 20 of them himself, and then just shared the rest out with everyone who was in the bar.
Yeah, I mean, there's stories of the fact that there was never a time that there was any less than about 5 women around him. There was the morning he woke up with like 4 women in his hotel room, and his first question was, "Where did all these Rolexes come from?" And they were like, "Do you not remember?" And he bought 5 Rolexes in the middle of the night. You know, this is like American stuff, but yeah, you know, and his response to that was, "Oh, okay then."
Yeah,
you know, he just takes it on the chin.
He's always said something like if he made $2,000 from wrestling that night, he'd spend 5.
Yeah,
and so like that. So
yeah, it was this thing
when it gets to the point where he needs like medical care and stuff like that, he won't have any money. He's been divorced 3 or 4 times,
and hasn't he been bankrupt multiple times?
More than likely.
There's been various points where it's like, "Oh, Ric Flair's bankrupt again."
Yeah,
and yeah, like he was spending 2-3 times the amount of money he was making.
Oh, it's insane. But he always said he felt like he had to do it because he was living the gimmick.
Yeah,
he felt like he had to sort of like he was the Nature Boy.
Yeah, no, I think it's that thing that he just had that one speed, and it was it was all go. It was all go or nothing. Which I suppose when that is who you are, that's who you paid to be.
Yeah, basically.
To not do that. I'd seen something. The wrestler was talking. I can't think who it was. I'm not sure if it was Jericho. Was saying that they were on the way to a match and they'd got into a lift and there was a guy and his son was there, like his little son, and it was like, "Oh my God, it's you." Part of me thinks it was Jericho, part of me thinks it was Cena, I don't know. My son's biggest fan, he saved all his pocket money so we can come see you, but all of this, can you sign this? And he just had to stand there and say nothing and do nothing and react in no way, shape or form and then get out of the lift. And this guy was going ballistic, like, "You're right here, just, say hi to my son, sign something and all this." And the point being was, I'm playing a character, and that character has to stay in character. And I'm not a good guy; I'm a bad guy. Yeah. So I can't be saying to you, "Hey, how you doing? Oh, let me sign this." That
definitely sounds like something Jericho would have done. Because I think at the time he was trying to be like a really sort of.
He was the really bad guy. He was one of those big bad guys, and he's like, it's not personal. It's not against you, but I can't do both. I can't be the good guy and the bad guy because you won't believe me when I go out on stage and be the bad guy.
Yeah.
So you need to believe that I'm the bad guy.
Yeah, exactly.
And it sounded quite sad.
It's a very strange profession when you sort of boil it down. At the end of the day,
I have made no attempt, and I'm pretty sure I said this the last time we sat down to talk. I have made no attempt to hide that I don't think it's the best business for the people that are in it. I don't think that the people that are in it are treated very well. I've seen a couple of documentaries now. I'm pretty sure this is the exact same conversation we had last time. I've seen a couple of documentaries now where they just talk about how badly the people in that company are treated, because they are destroying their bodies. They're addicted to prescription painkillers. They're addicted to other things just to get through the pain that they're in at all times. And at the end of it, it's a handshake and a goodbye. And those people walk out broken and with no money.
Yeah, I mean, it's getting better. We did this. We definitely did cover this the last time. Like, there's stuff that the WWE's put in place, like the wellness program and stuff like that stops them from being able to be on like pain medication and stuff like that, because it'll show up in their test results and they'll be suspended and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But there's no union, so they can't.
No.
All the wrestlers can't just decide to stop working, and then the PFA or whatever that would for footballers would step in and say, no, we want these conditions met before you start doing this, this and this. They just don't have that. But
then I suppose the question then becomes, if they did, would it be as fun? Would it be as much of a
no,
spectacular
probably not.
as it
It's,
would, if they wouldn't be allowed to do
it's
stuff?
that fine line in it where you just don't really know which way to sort of go with it. But I don't know. I enjoy it.
And that's all that matters.
Yeah,
Really?
I suppose.
Short version, that is all that matters.
Yeah.
We went to the cinema.
Are you referring to the bedroom?
What?
Well, I had a little snooze, didn't I? So
You had a little snooze. Me and the barkeep didn't. Now, this is going to seem a little strange, because James Keeper's done a full review of Black Panther and then did a spoiler-free review of Avengers Infinity War. So it would seem a little strange for me to then ask you what you thought about these things. But as a background...
I'm going to do it anyway.
I'm going to do it anyway. As a background, the running joke on the day that we went to the cinema, and you were simultaneously laughing and offended at this joke, was when I turned around to you and went, hey, you're going to increase the number of films you've seen by 20% in one day. You are not a film guy. And
self-professed, I am not a big film guy.
We took you to see 2 films back to back.
And late in the day.
And late. A 8:30 kick-off of Black Panther and a midnight showing of...
That is the first time I've ever been to a release of a film.
Ever. Cannot say the same. I was one of the first people in this country to see The Phantom Menace.
As was covered in the James Key podcast. And you said at the time that you thoroughly enjoyed... No.
For somebody who's not a film guy, how was that experience for you?
So,
what did you think to Black Panther?
Confused.
Okay.
So it confused me because it didn't really... Now, as we've discussed, we being me, you and James, and a few other lads when we went to the quiz that we do every week, we discussed that I have not seen all of the Marvel films, so a lot of the stuff would have been lost on me.
Yeah.
You lads keep like sort of throwing out these origin stories when it comes to sort of stuff like that. So obviously, as an origin story, I'm sure it made perfect sense in the fact that you had to sort of know where he came from.
But that's the problem, because Black Panther's introduced before the film Black Panther. Black Panther is introduced, not to ruin it for you because I know you're going to work your way through it, but Black Panther is introduced in Civil War.
But is it not a case of that's fine because that's sort of how they've done it with other characters in the series?
Not really. All of them have had an origin story.
But wasn't Doctor Strange in it before he had his own film?
No.
Oh.
Doctor Strange.
Ignore that then.
Yeah. That's another one that I've completely forgotten. Ant-Man. You need to watch Ant-Man as well. Which is very enjoyable.
That's not till phase 3 though, is it? Of the sort of list. I don't think.
Maybe.
I'll have to have a look at it again. Also, it's kind of weird. I don't think I can watch it and not think, God, Chris Jericho's let himself go a bit.
In Ant-Man.
I don't care how many times people tell me.
Paul Rudd.
I will always think Paul Rudd is a dead ringer for Chris Jericho. They're like, no, he doesn't. He don't got anything like him. He's like, yeah, he fucking does.
So, Black Panther not actually an origin story. Black Panther a continuation.
Yeah, I mean, did we do? I'm trying to remember what you did with James. Did you do spoiler-free Black Panther? Or did you say because it's been out for a long time?
Black Panther had been out long enough that we didn't need to do spoiler-free.
The bit that I didn't understand about it was that...
Whoa, spoilers!
Ha, 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 ha. Yeah. The bit I didn't really get with it is that why it spent so much time where it was set.
Wakanda.
Yeah.
That's where it was set.
But surely the point of him being a superhero is that he doesn't need to be a superhero in his hometown.
This is the thing. So basically, the way that Black Panther works is he's gone and done his superhero bit and has then returned home.
Right.
Black Panther's a guy who's a superhero from another land, essentially.
Right.
And he just is brought more and more into the world of the Avengers.
Right, okay.
Like at the end, again, spoilers if you haven't seen it, at the end where they start integrating Wakanda and the Wakandan people into America, essentially.
Yeah.
So that's that. He'll be around more now because he's got that link between those two worlds.
Makes sense.
As a movie,
I wasn't overly enamoured with it, if I'm being honest. It was a bit wishy-washy for me. I mean, some excellent stuff in it. Like, a few of the characters were very humorous. I enjoyed that. But yeah, it was almost a bit like, had we not gone to see that and then just gone to see Infinity War, I don't think I would have
gone, oh man, I should have seen Black Panther.
Well, I wouldn't have been anywhere less/more confused. I mean, I was already confused as it was anyway, because there was half of the characters that I didn't even know who they were, because I'm not far enough through of seeing all the films to know certain characters that turned up in Infinity War.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think we kind of knew that was going to be the case for me.
Yeah, I mean, we had a conversation a week before going to the cinema where we were like, can we watch all the Marvel films before Thursday? I think that was the Friday.
We worked it out, didn't we? We said that, like, we actually figured it. I think we worked out it was physically impossible to do it.
Yeah, because
there wasn't enough hours in the time, and we wouldn't have. It was a case of we'd have to watch them without sleep and not going to work.
Which I think me and James were more than happy to attend.
You're like, yeah, that sounds fair enough.
That sounds doable. So, what did you think to Avengers, having not really seen the others?
The first half an hour, excellent.
Yeah.
Then it was time for a little sleep.
Then sleep time.
There was a little time for a little sleep. And again, I'm having to base all this on basically what you guys tell me. And at this point, you haven't really told me that much. So...
Well, we were working on principle you were going to watch all the others.
No, I meant... Well, at that point, I meant as in how long I was asleep for.
Oh, you weren't asleep for too long.
See, I'm starting to think that it was maybe anywhere between 5 and 20 minutes that I was asleep for.
I think it was about 10 minutes.
Right, okay.
If I'm honest. But you said you'd been asleep twice.
Yeah, I did. Because I'm pretty sure I fell asleep sort of almost at the start. Because it was a case of, right, I'm awake. I've had my coffee. 12 o'clock ticks over, the film starts, and it's like, hang on a second. Is it 20 past 12? Well, it can't be, because the film didn't even start till probably a quarter, because of all the trailers and the nonsense. We'll come back to it in a minute, but could not disagree any more with your slanderous slating of the Venom trailers.
Oh, God, here we go.
I don't even know what it is, and I really want to see it, based on the trailers.
The trailer's fucking awful.
Disagree.
Venom looks like he might as well have been stood next to Spawn in the 90s movie.
Yeah, you say that, and like you said that to James, and he was like, "Oh yeah, I totally get that." I'm like,
you won't get that. But the effect of Venom was awful. The fact that you don't really see. I know it's a teaser, it's a trailer, but the fact that it's like, hey, you know, Tom Hardy can do all the things that Venom can do without actually being Venom. Oh, good. That's what we want to see in a Venom movie. As I said at the time, I've got a stake in this one. Anyway, trailer looks shit. Sort it out, Marvel. Come on.
That's what surprised me about it, because I had a look through the list to look at what was coming next, and so because as we left the cinema, you were discussing the fact that I think it's Ant-Man and the Wasp is the next one to come in the series.
Ant-Man and the Wasp, then it's Venom.
No. Not in the sort of the grand scheme of the Marvel universe. Venom's not in that list
because Venom isn't fully connected to the MCU.
So the next one apparently after that was then Captain Marvel. And like I say, Venom wasn't, and I think after that it was Untitled Avengers movie or something like that.
So there'll be another Avengers, I imagine, at some point. Not wanting to say too much on that anyway.
So going back to Avengers Infinity War, yeah, it opened... I'm trying to think how it started now. I think I was a bit confused just as it started anyway, because I was like, what?
Who is this person?
Who's that? Who dat? And then,
thinking about how that film starts, if you haven't, because you've gone into this film at the, you're at the back end of it going, I haven't seen anything leading up to this point, apart from a film I watched an hour ago.
Oh yeah, big time. And films I'd seen 5 years before this.
It wouldn't make a lot of sense.
But as I discussed with you, technically the first of the Marvel sort of series that I watched was Avengers Assemble, which makes no sense whatsoever. I think I had seen Iron Man in passing, but then I was like, I probably need to go back and watch that again to sort of get the...
Because it's great.
To get the story, and I did. I watched it last night. It was excellent.
Good film.
Very good film. I enjoyed it, but I was very confused for, I'd say, the majority of the show.
Which I think is fine. Like I say, you didn't have much relevance. So to say you enjoyed it is probably a good thing. Having no relevance, but still being able to enjoy it. So, complete change of subject.
Right.
Massive right turn on this one. This week in the NFL world, big things happened.
I believe it was, in fact, a week ago tonight.
So, the NFL 2018 draft has been and gone. And... Because that's the point where you're supposed to go, and some surprise, there wasn't all that many surprises. I think the only thing that stuck out that was a surprise was that the Browns used their picks.
Yeah, I think...
Which was interesting.
To be honest, that wasn't even the big surprise. Like, discussing it with Steve... There we go. There's the third mention. So he has to now be on the podcast.
Get him on the blower.
So in discussing it with Steve, because as it was going on, I thought I'll see if he's like up or whatever, which he always is because he works to American time basically with his job.
Right.
So I sent him a text saying, well that was a bit unexpected, and then he texted me. So Baker Mayfield, starting quarterback for the Oklahoma Sooners. We've probably discussed that previously because it's JR's team in America. So it kind of makes me want to support them a little bit in the college football ranks. Excuse me. In the same way that I kind of want to see the Alabama Crimson Tide always do well because it's Conrad Thompson's team because he's from Alabama. But you don't really need to sort of pull for the Crimson Tide because they're pretty much the best team in college football every year. Like I had a look back through the stats, and I think they've been to the NCAA final something like 5 out of the last 6 years.
Wow,
it's insane how good they are. So Baker Mayfield was the starting quarterback for the Oklahoma Sooners for the last couple of years. He's the Heisman Trophy winner. When I was looking at the stuff a couple of weeks before, he was slated to be the 3rd, 4th, possibly even 5th best quarterback of the declared eligible candidates. Yeah. So not even the best quarterback in the draft, let alone the best player in the draft, however you want to sort of determine it. And he goes first overall to the Cleveland Browns.
Yes, he did.
And I think a lot of people were a bit sort of shocked by that because, as we just discussed, he wasn't determined to be the best quarterback in the draft.
Nope.
Or the best available quarterback. And he's very similar to a quarterback they drafted about 3 or 4 seasons ago, called Johnny Manziel. So they both share a lot of traits. So they're both from Texas.
Yeah.
They're both got flawed parts of their personality. They're both sort of a bit outspoken, maybe a bit hot to handle and stuff like that. And there's both. I think they both have question marks over certain aspects of their game, like they can't sort of manage the game that well and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But equally, they're both talented quarterbacks who on their day can really do some good stuff and stuff like that. And yeah, when it came out, you could sort of tell that the people in attendance were a little bit whoa on both of the Browns' first picks actually.
Yeah.
So that was the surprising one for me. Was that, like you said, that they selected with both their picks.
Yeah, I was convinced they were going to trade their 4th pick.
I think a lot of people were, to be fair.
I was like, when you're the Browns, you probably want to keep hold of that first pick. But a 4th pick trade away makes more sense. And they didn't.
But I think they probably looked into it at some point and thought, well, let's see what we can get for it. If we can't get anything that's that good, let's use it. Let's use the pick. Let's get a decent player and make our ranks better, which is obviously what they did. But when it came to picking at 4, apparently the best defensive player that was left I say left. I mean, there's only 3 players that have been picked before him. Was a guy called Bradley. No, is it Bradley? I might have got that completely wrong, but some guy called something Chubb. And when I was talking to Steve about it, I said, so who's going next then? And he said Chubb. I thought he was talking about a guy called Nick Chubb, who is a running back from Georgia, the Georgia Bulldogs.
Yeah.
And he was operating in a 2-back system with a guy called Sonny Michel, who later ended up getting drafted in the first round by the Patriots. So when he said this Chubb guy, I was like, oh yeah, running back from Georgia. He was like, hey, who the hell's that? And I was like, it was him and Sonny Michel, two pretty good running backs from Georgia and stuff like that. It's like, no, the defensive back or the tackle or whatever, because I don't even know where he plays.
Yeah.
This Bradley Chubb guy. And I think the Browns ended up taking a cornerback. And apparently people were saying he's the best cornerback in the draft, or he's one of the top cornerbacks in the draft, but that wasn't really the best position they could have taken at that time. No. So it was a bit of a surprise. But there's some people out there that just like to do that, don't they? They don't like to sort of stick with
Yeah, and why not? I mean, my point for the Browns, they can literally try whatever they want at this point.
Well, I was going to say, any young player they get at this point is going to be better than what they've got. Because they had 2 picks in the first round last year as well, I seem to remember. Because they got Myles Garrett, who's supposed to be one of the best defensive players going.
Yeah.
And they also got, oh God, what the hell's his name? Jabril Peppers, who's I think plays free safety. Sort of in that sort of backfield area of the defence. And the only reason I know that is because on the Taz show they were talking about Heisman Trophy winner. Not the season that Baker Mayfield won it, the season before.
Yeah.
And that ended up going to a guy called Lamar Jackson, who ended up getting drafted by the Ravens. And in that sort of 6, because there's normally, I think, 6 people who get nominated or shortlisted for the Heisman Trophy. And I think Jabril Peppers was in that because he was playing everything. So he was playing for, I can't remember the team he was playing for, but he was basically playing running back. I think he was doing kick returns. He was playing on the defence. He was basically just playing everywhere. So he was like the ultimate utility player. And then obviously got drafted by the Browns in last year's draft in the first round. And he obviously didn't really do that much for last season because they lost all 16 games. But the idea being is that this season he'll have had a season's worth of football games under his belt, and he should in theory play loads better this season. I mean, he probably played all right last season, but it's just the fact that you're in a team where losing's become a bit of a habit.
Yeah, I don't know how to go about saying this, but I wonder if this could be the year that we see the Browns do something. I'm not going, the Browns are off to the Super Bowl. I mean,
a successful season for the Browns this season is to go, like, I mean, if you offered them 8-8, they'd snap your hands off, but they need to get to a point where they can win 3, 4, 5 games this season. It's going to be a slow process. I mean, like, the team that they need to look at emulating is the Jags.
Yeah.
Look at how bad the Jags were for seasons. Like, they had like 10 seasons out of the playoffs or something like that. 10 losing seasons, and this season just gotten to 90 seconds away from the Super Bowl, something ridiculous like that.
Yeah.
So the Browns need to look at teams like that, teams like them, teams like the Titans, teams like the Rams to a certain extent, and just say, we're gonna be shit for a couple of seasons, but the idea is that the draft picks are going to build up. Will improve the players at certain positions, and over time. The problem with the Browns is that they kept wasting all their first round picks. So I think it was something. If you go back through the last sort of 5 to 10 years worth of drafts, it's like pretty much like all but 2 of the players they've taken in the first round they just don't have anymore.
Yeah.
Which is ridiculous when you consider it. But they just need to start putting like investment into their draft picks and selecting better. And hopefully they've done that with Mayfield and I can't even think of the guy's name that they took 4th. How bad is that?
Yeah, I mean, I just from all the moving that they did in the off season, back end of last season sort of area, then this draft stuff, it's piqued my interest.
They'll definitely win. I know what you're saying, and to a certain extent, I suppose you could argue there could be like a dark horse, but they shouldn't be thinking anything like that. They shouldn't be thinking playoffs. At this point, all they should be thinking about is let's win some games. Start off small.
They just need some games under their belt and go from there and build that team up and keep working at it. Something that I heard 2 things a few weeks ago, which I thought was quite interesting. One was that Gronk wasn't turning up for practice.
Yeah.
Which might have been you said, that's down to injury. And
I don't really know what it is, but he'll definitely be back. He'll play next season.
I don't remember him being injured. But it was off the back of the conversation where somebody had sort of done what are your thoughts around retirement, and he didn't say he was ruling it out.
Yeah.
And the other thing that I thought was very interesting was that Brady hadn't turned up. And
I don't remember hearing that.
And his announcement was that he wanted to spend a little bit more time with his family.
Well, that's fair enough. He's 40. Mm-hmm. So if he wants time to go sunbathing with Giselle, I think that's probably understandable. That's fair enough.
I just thought it was a little strange.
I don't know. Well, maybe at 40, it's harder to sort of come back from a Super Bowl loss. It's a bit more painful or something. I don't know.
Yeah, when he has to lift all 5 of those rings up. It must be hard.
It's something that interesting that you might not have seen it, but it came out I think within the last couple of days. Witten's retired.
Yes, I did see that. Interesting. Not surprising.
He's been playing for 11, 12 seasons.
Yeah.
Like that, so
11 seasons.
Somewhere Steve is crying his eyes out because massive Cowboys fan.
Big Cowboys fan. So, I'm quite looking forward to
within the last 2 seasons, he's lost his quarterback and his best tight end.
Yeah.
So he's just like, meh. And they've let Des go.
Yeah, that was weird.
Not enough money.
Yeah,
This won't have enough cap space.
I'm quite looking forward to the new season of All or Nothing.
Yeah, I was going to say that's
the
Cowboys. So.
Which they've started releasing little bits of footage from, which looks quite cool.
That is the one thing that is tempting me to get. What is it?
Prime.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like Prime for stuff like that. There are a series of shows that I quite enjoy on Prime, and that's been one of them. So, interesting NFL season to come. Possibly.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, if you had to ask me now who I think is going to win it, I think you can only really look at one team, just from all the moves they've made, and it's the Rams. The Rams they just put together an absolutely insane team.
Mm. Oh, the other thing from the draft was the Griffin brothers.
Oh, the guy who's only got one hand.
This is the guy that's got one hand, and they've
Seahawks.
both gone to the Seahawks.
Yeah,
which is good.
Should be interesting to see. I don't know where he plays. I don't know if he's a running back or if he's a defensive player.
I think I seen I saw something that he was a running back.
Maybe.
I don't know.
I don't know for definite.
Don't ever quote me on it.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that works out.
And with an interesting NFL season comes an interesting NFL fantasy football season.
You say interesting. I see it as, right, let's see what happens. Oh my god, the draft's gone really well. I'm really happy with my team.
Look at my team, it's amazing.
We'll get to week 1 and I'll win. I'll win my matchup in week 1.
Yeah.
I'll win my matchup in week 2. I'll be 2-0, top of the tree, loads of points on the board, and then the shit will hit the fan.
Yeah.
And I will inevitably lose my best running back to some sort of flesh-eating virus. Of course, Toots will have fluked some absolute nonsense player that he's never heard of before. But
About a sleeper.
I mean, the thing that annoys me most about that guy is
Here we go.
he comes out with nonsense such as, well, I'm not drafting that Todd Gurley guy. He was wank for me last season. He'll be terrible again. And then he goes and has like the best season of his career. So, yeah, that's why, you know, it sort of annoys me that he beat me in the final the first year of the fantasy.
I hate to tell you this, but you do need to listen to his podcast. I know I need to release it, but you do need to listen to his podcast because
that gets brought up by any chance?
he knows his stuff, I'm afraid.
Yeah, you say
He
that.
knows his stuff.
You say
I
that,
asked him because
I fail to believe this.
He forced the subject. To be fair, he was like, "Oh, you want to talk about the fantasy season?" I was like, "No, not really." He was like, "What? You want to talk about fantasy?" I was like, "If you want,
I can only assume.
let's talk about you being fantasy champion so many times."
I can only assume this came fast on the heels of you two discussing Metallica for about 45 minutes.
There was no Metallica conversation. I don't think.
Saving that for podcast number 2.
Podcast number 2 is Metallica.
Clearly.
That's going to be just
Carnage.
raging bonus.
Jesus Christ, you two are going to be absolutely on each
Oh, jeez.
yeah, I mean, fair enough. Yeah, I'll give him his due. He knows an awful lot more about it now than he did when we did the first season of fantasy.
I had him out on the podcast for taking 8 hours to make his picks.
He was using that full 2 minutes or that full 90 seconds or whatever.
And I said to him, I was like, I just sit there screaming at my laptop.
We know you're taking him. We know you're taking him.
Threatening
Stop
death
it.
threats
Pick it now.
on the
Don't
group
keep
chat.
waiting. He's right there. You're obviously taking him. Who the hell's he taking? Who the hell's John Ryan? Or like, what? But yeah, he is a little bitch.
So, gonna throw it out to you here and now on this here podcast.
Yes.
That when the NFL fantasy season kicks off, we commit ourselves to a weekly,
Absolutely.
released weekly,
Absolutely.
NFL fantasy podcast.
Fantasy roundup. I mean, it's like
where we get you, me, and one other person. And I'm not saying that's Matthew Two Teams Taylor.
Hey, I tell you something, we should have like a rotating, well, I say guest.
Yeah.
There's me just inviting myself on as one of the hosts. You could do a rotating guest from
No, but
from the league.
that is actually what I'm thinking.
So obviously there's Leanne.
The one man that needs to get himself on this podcast is Tim the Boy Lacey.
Oh, Tim Lacey.
Tim the Boy Lacey.
Now
He's
there's-
having none of it.
Now there's a guy who knows his stuff, to be fair. He's quite oh my god. It's just dawned on me that this past weekend I was spending it with the current league champion. And I explained to him that I need to get a photo with you at some point with the trophy, once I've bought the trophy, so that people can actually know who you are and know that you're not one of my teams. And he broached the subject of the trophy and said, "Gonna put it out there, no trophy.
Domination League.
Not a domination.
Winner gets to punch the loser in the face.
No, but don't offer that because he'll just be praying that I lose every week. He wants to strike me so bad. No, he said no trophy.
Belt.
Championship belt.
Obviously, Cole brought up the subject of the trophy to me the other day, and I was like, "Speak to your commissioner." And it was gently suggested that if the commissioner had won, that there'd have definitely been a fucking trophy. But
right, sorry.
Prize pot as well. That was the other one.
Right, I'd like to point out at this point that this is Colin Wright, the gentleman who
You're putting him on blast.
This is the gentleman who, in the draft, in round 6, selected Calvin Johnson, even though he'd retired.
He'd retired the season
4 months prior to the draft.
None of us could work out how he'd managed to draft a retired player.
Because...
But it turns out you can search for anybody.
You can search for anyone, so basically...
John Elway.
So to put it in perspective...
Dan
in my...
Marino. Is OJ still playing?
Ooh. So to put it in perspective, in my other league... one of my mates basically one season had a guy called LaDainian Tomlinson playing as one of his running backs, and he did quite well. I think he got him loads of points. So even after he retired, he, with his last pick in every draft, would always take LaDainian Tomlinson. Even though he'd been retired for several seasons, but he was still in the game because he hadn't removed his details from the game.
Brilliant.
So he always took LaDainian Tomlinson with his last pick, and he tried to do it, and he was like, "Oh my god, which one of you slags has taken Tomlinson?" Like, no one. And he was like, "Oh my god, they've finally taken him out of the game." No!
Oh, no. I'd be tempted to contact ESPN and be like, "I'm really sorry, but could you put this player
it's
back?"
Like apparently, so
it's a thing.
One of the funniest things that you can look at is the fact that in the top right corner of the information box for each player, it'll give you the percentage of leagues that player is owned in.
Mm-hmm.
So players like Brady, Drew Brees, Todd Gurley, Leonard Fournette, Ezekiel Elliott, they'll always be 100%.
Yeah.
So they're always in all leagues. And then you'll get the dross players down the bottom, like the backup quarterback or the third string quarterback for the Oakland Raiders or whatever, that you've maybe taken on the off chance that Derek Carr's not going to be fit one week, and then the backup also goes down injured.
Yeah.
And the funniest thing was that there was in certain leagues they'd worked out that there was the starting quarterback for, I think it might have even been the Browns, was selected in less leagues than Tim Tebow, who hadn't been in the league in like 5 seasons or something ridiculous like that. And Tebow was still getting selected in fantasy drafts.
Brilliant.
He was never going to play. It was absolutely ridiculous.
Ah, dear.
But yeah, I'm up for a weekly
weekly fantasy
roundup.
podcast. We might even have to give it a different name. We'll have to come up with some kind of fun NFL.
So you're thinking as in like release it under a different bracket?
Potentially. We need something cookie.
Oh no!
NFL based. That's the way the NFL crumbles.
No.
We should throw it out to people.
Yeah.
Podcast listeners.
Bosh.
We need an NFL pun for the Cookiecast podcast, weekly NFL fantasy football podcast. First person to bring a name to us wins a prize. And that prize is...
to be determined.
To be TBD.
TBD.
There it is again.
Let's just come together and we can eradicate the
TBD.
world of TBD. This is the worst thing ever. Bring back TBD.
And for anybody who's never watched Arrested Development, well, shame on you, and go and watch it. So there we go. Podcast done.
Perfect.
Knocked out.
Splendiferous.
I would, most people, I get to this point, it's like, oh, thanks for coming, come back again, do another one. Probably not going to do that with you. I should just do, I'll see you this time next week.
Yeah, we're scheduled in for, 7 days' time or something like that. And basically we'll just make it happen.
Me on Thursday night. There'll be a point where you don't come on a Thursday and I'll be lost.
Yeah,
I don't know
what's
what to do
going
with
on?
myself.
It's it's when we get to the stage where we just live stream it. And it's a live podcast.
Live podcast. So they did toy with the idea of a live podcast with some stuff. I don't know how that would technically work. But hey, something to toy with.
Yeah.
So, thanks for coming.
Marvellous.
Do come back.
Obviously, anytime.
Right, but until then, bye-bye. So there you go. What did you think to that? Another sit down with Paul. Paul's a great guest to have on. It's good to see that he keeps coming back, and I hope that he'll keep coming back in future episodes. As always, I'll direct you straight over to the website, thecookiecast.com. Jump over there, send us a tweet or a Facebook or even an email. Tell us what you're liking, what you're not liking, what you want to see more of, what you want to see less of. So until next time, bye-bye.